So we've learned that face to face, the cherubim facing each other, and we, implies an ethical imperative, a responsibility toward the other, which is the essence of religion. Great. What's the nature of this ethical obligation, the imperative, responsibility? Levinas has a lot to say, and everything I'm about to say, he qualifies elsewhere. But I want to start with some of his most well-known claims, which I'm going to tell you right now are going to make us really uncomfortable. And that's the point. Don't worry. I will argue with myself or him on your behalf. So here's number one. The responsibility conveyed by the face is infinite. He says, the more I am just, the more I am responsible. One is never quits with regard to the other. At no time can one say, I have done all my duty. Number two, the face of the other conveys responsibility, even if it's not returned. They don't feel responsibility to you. Here's what he says. I am responsible for the other without waiting for reciprocity. Reciprocity is his affair. Number three, I'm responsible for the other in connection with offenses that I didn't personally commit. Listen to this. It is I who support all. You remember, he says, that sentence in Dostoevsky, we are all guilty of all, and for all men before all, and I more than the others. Levinas continues, this is not owing to such or such a guilt which is really mine, or to offenses that I would have committed, but because I am responsible for a total responsibility, which answers for all the others and for all in the others, even for their responsibility. The I always has one responsibility more than all the others. Well, okay then. How's that sitting with you? Are we overwhelmed yet? Infinite responsibility? I don't know about you, but my time and resources are very definitely finite. And it's not like there's only one other. There are a lot of other others, not to mention myself, and lots of conflicting demands. And what about boundaries, right? How do we function if we don't have boundaries on what we owe each other? And yet, it doesn't mean he's wrong. If the face signifies infinity, an infinite value, then yeah, the responsibility it commands is also infinite. If the other is hungry, am I obliged to provide one meal, but not two? I owe it this week, but not next week. On what rational basis can I draw a line? All right, give him that one, but responsibility regardless of reciprocity, I mean, that's clearly problematic, right? What about an other who denies my infinite value, my equality, uniqueness, the sacred in me, who hates me or hurts me? What about evil and violence? What about self-defense and protecting others? Right? This sounds emotionally demanding beyond what's realistic or healthy, and potentially even suicidal. And he's not actually wrong about this either. It puts our focus where it rightly belongs, on our behavior and our souls, which we're responsible for, no matter what. How can I let other people's actions, especially the most hateful, dictate my moral stance? It rightly rejects moral whataboutism, as if someone else's immorality or hatred, including anti-Semitism, excuses my own or negates their humanity. Standing on moral reciprocity is a race to the bottom. It's a really good way to lose our souls, and it is how evil triumphs. All right, so we'll give him 2. Vicarious responsibility. I'm guilty for guilt which isn't really mine, or offenses I wouldn't have committed. I have to tell you, speaking as someone who has always felt neurotically responsible for all kinds of things that are beyond my control, this is definitely not what I need. Right? What does this mean? And guess what? Come Yom Kippur, we will confess multiple times, in the plural, for all kinds of sins that we have never personally committed, and we will do so on behalf of Anachnu v'Avotenu, us and our ancestors. Maimonides too. You know that famous passage about the shofar saying, "Awake, you sleepers"? That's Maimonides, right? He goes on to say, basically, we should all see ourselves all year long as if the merit of the entire world depends on us and our next deed. That's what he says. It's Maimonides, right? It is I who support all. I can feel your pushback, and I share it, right? You're right. Levinas doesn't resonate with us for a number of reasons, some good ones, some less good ones. One less good reason, I think, is because we tend to make decisions around what will give us more life, and especially more of the life that we want. Often now it's framed on a medical model, right? What's healthy for us? Very important. It's all good. That's the initial driver, right? The ego wants to survive. And then, with more or less success, we try to find meaning or to fit more meaningful things into that life that we want. Levinas is starting from a very different place, right? If you think about the famous statement from Hillel, right? If I am not for me, who will be for me? That's where most of us start. He's starting from the next line. If I am only for myself, what am I? He's starting from the question of, what is life for? I want more life for what? That's the religious question. And he's riffing on Kol Yisrael Arevim Zevazeh, all of Israel are responsible for one another. He universalizes that. Very important. Levinas sees that as a universal thing. It's not about Jews. Human beings are responsible for one another. And he concludes that the meaning of human existence is that responsibility. And from that perspective, total responsibility is kind of right. To recognize the other is to give. It's related to my teaching yesterday about the meaning of life being to give generously of what we have to give, whatever that may be. And at the same time, and I think this rescues it a little bit, I hear my mother's voice in my head. My mother used to say, You can't give what you don't have. And that does two things. It forms a natural boundary on what would otherwise be unlimited. It's infinite responsibility, but we can't give what we don't have. And it turns the infinite part into an unending opportunity to increase our capacity for love and generosity so that we have more to give. And by the way, if you're sitting at home watching the news at some point and it's freaking you out, this is actually a really good place to go. How can I increase my capacity for love and generosity so I have more to give? Because that's what I'm here to do. It takes it out of what's going to happen to me. Am I going to be okay? Is this, right? And puts it right back. What's my responsibility? What is life about? Okay. So say I've convinced myself here. Say he's right. My responsibility is infinite. It's not limited to my own actions, and it's not dependent on reciprocity. Bottom line, it's still kind of impossible to live that way. Right? So how does that help me? What does it offer? Two things. One, it keeps us tethered to big moral truths in a world that is constantly chipping away at them and that requires moral compromise in action. It is all too easy because the world deals with, because we have to live in the possible and we do have to compromise. It is all too easy to piously let ourselves off the hook, even internally, with all kinds of justifications. And we're really, really good at it, especially, but not only, around our share in the suffering of other people. We use self-defense, and often with a side order of victimhood. Plenty of people are worried about them. We have to stick up for ourselves or no one else will. Avoiding needless suffering. There's nothing I can do about it. And there's no point just feeling sad and helpless. We used higher purpose. Well, maybe people I support are committing bad things, unspeakable cruelty. But that's not why I support them. I support them for other more important reasons, a higher good. Moral high ground. They're worse. They started it. They're evil. All of this may at times be true. It may be true. And it may sometimes need to determine our actions. But none of that negates our responsibility. And it shouldn't absolve our conscience. Levinas's impossible total responsibility stands as the grand even so to all of our justifications, reminding us of big moral truths, absolute truths, that it is not okay, it is never okay to treat a human face as anything less than a human face, sacred, of infinite meaning and value, unique, equal, and other to and for whom I am responsible. It is never okay to lose that. That's the first thing Levinas does for us. Oh, all right. So I'll argue with myself on your behalf. So are you saying we should beat ourselves up and feel guilty all the time? That would also be very Jewish of us. But no, of course not. Because here's the second thing. The gift here is disabusing ourselves of the illusion of our own unqualified goodness, the arrogance of that, and the moral weakness that comes with it. If your image of being good demands not causing harm and fulfilling all your responsibilities and being just and being justified, then, first of all, Yom Kippur next week is going to be really hard for you, and I feel for you. And facing truth is always going to make you feel like a bad person. And you're going to turn all kinds of mental and moral handsprings to avoid that and end up living in a lot of falsehood. The point of Levinas's total infinite responsibility is not to say we're all bad people. Dafka lehefech. Levinas was French, au contraire, right? He's defining in a more honest and realistic way what it means to be a good, decent person. Because good, decent people cause harm and don't live up to their full responsibility and respond inadequately to other people's needs and suffering and apply double standards to perceived friends and enemies and have ignoble thoughts and feelings about the other, especially another who demands or threatens or challenges or makes me uncomfortable. It's not only bad people who do that. All human people do that, including good, decent people like us. And the difference is good, decent people own it. We own it. It is no accident that Judaism's origin story opens with a tale of two conflicting duties impossible to fulfill, both having to choose and living with the burden of causing harm, what's called the moral remainder. I am referencing God's call to Abraham, Lech Lecha, leave your father's house and follow me, God says. That's how Judaism starts. Abraham is the first Ivri, the first Hebrew. If you read the Torah super closely, you will see that the timing makes clear that Abraham's father, Terach, is still alive at this time. What about the mitzvah, honor your father and mother? What do you mean, leave your father's house and follow me? Rashi's commentary here is amazing. He imagines that Abraham is anxious, that he's worried that people will say he abandoned his aged father. And so God says, we'll hide it. We'll write about your father's death earlier in the Torah, before it really happens. And then the readers won't do the math and they won't notice. And then comes Rashi and he points it out to us. He says, Terach is still alive. It's almost as if he's correcting God. No, don't hide it. It's not shameful. We have to see it. It's the contradiction and the failure that teaches us. That's how we grow a practical ethic we can act on in the real world without losing our moral conscience. It's the foundation of moral maturity. The impossibility of living up to Levinas isn't about neurotic guilt, but neither does it let us off the hook. What it does is release the anxiety of moral perfectionism, the shame of moral failure, the competition to be just and right. It soothes a little the pain of moral injury, the cognitive dissonance between our self-image and the truth of who we are. And in doing that, it leaves room for sadness and for shared human responsibility, which is not only freeing and hopeful, but brings with it more moral courage and capacity and resilience. What it does is it helps us turn toward each other as fellow good, decent, flawed humans, which the overwhelming lot of us, with limited exceptions for real evil, are. Earlier, I talked about being manipulated to turn against each other. We also need to talk about turning away from each other, which we do all by ourselves. Poet Andrea Gibson, who I referenced yesterday, wrote, "Our insanity isn't that we see people who aren't really there. It's that we ignore the ones who are." We don't have the energy or the time. We don't want to deal with it. We don't want to get into it. We don't want to have to respond or to change or to feel. We turn away from huge swaths of society just by default. We're oblivious to their needs, tribulations, values. They're too distant, geographically or otherwise, to be in our line of vision. No one can see every face. We turn away from people closest to us, from their yearning for our presence and connection, their pains, their needs, the proverbial shoemaker's children without shoes. We turn away even from the love they offer to us, ignoring or dismissing connection, nurturing, grounding that we desperately need. We turn away by giving up on each other, by being dismissive. Oh, they're a lost cause, stupid, ignorant, immoral, unimportant, not worth listening to, not worth engaging with. Among the things that Levinas says the face obligates us to, and he was very prescient in this, the face obligates us to discourse. We're not obligated to agree. We may never, but we are obligated to listen and respond seriously. And most especially, we turn away from others' suffering. Sometimes it's out of very necessary self-care. Who can possibly bear to fully face all the suffering and pain in our world? None of us can do that. It's overwhelming. And we need a balance between unhelpful overwhelm and hardening our hearts. But often, we turn away from suffering because of the discomfort of responsibility, the pain of moral injury, the cognitive dissonance between who we think we are and the reality of who we are and the impact of our choices. I think this is actually at the root, at the heart of a lot of the rage in our society. One of my favorite Christian theologians is Franciscan friar Richard Rohr. And he teaches that the rage in our society is a cover for sadness. And boy, are we sad. Because the world is full of suffering, others and our own. And we all need our suffering seen and responded to and relieved where possible. And we all have a share in everyone else's suffering And we desperately don't want to see that. So instead, we're enraged. How dare you tell me to turn to that suffering? It's my suffering. It's this suffering. Why are you worried about? It's us. We're furious at each other over this. If we could get to the sadness, we could let go of a lot of the rage. And from sadness, Rosh says, we can move in and through eventually to joy. So yes, Levinas's infinite responsibility accuses. It strips away the refuge of practical limits and others' lack of concern for us and our own lack of direct action and all the excuses, some of which are legitimate, that we offer. We need that reminder. We are not free to turn away. I'm not even free to turn away from the fact that I so desperately want to turn away. Andrea Gibson captured it perfectly. Listen to this sentence. Who with a heart can stomach how much they can stomach? I'm going to read that again. Who with a heart can stomach how much they can stomach? And simultaneously, the impossibility of it, the inevitability of failure can give us the courage to turn toward human to human because it holds us in love and compassion. I don't know if Levinas would put it this way, but Yitz does, and I will. The whole basis on which the faith conveys this total infinite obligation is belovedness, preciousness. The other is beloved, of infinite value. So am I, no matter what. Both of us in our flawed humanity. It's basically the conceptual underpinning of Yom Kippur, of tshuva, of atonement. Paradoxically, because it both releases and makes possible, both requires and makes possible the turning toward, Levinas's total responsibility is the path to joy. It releases us from so much pointless self-judgment and fear and anxiety and defensiveness and anger, and it enables honest acceptance, freeing our energy for more connection, for healing empathy, and for together doing something about our suffering.